My name is Deborah Bowles, and I'm the Interim Director of the Teaching and Learning Center at Prince George's Community College in Landover, Maryland. And along with my colleague, Michael Smith, we have been implementing OERs at our college for 4 years. So we have a college-wide implementation, and we've been doing a lot of work with this. We host some LibreFests like Hope College does. We also travel and share the idea with people as well. So I am by background a teacher. That is my degree. I am part-time in the education department here at the college, along with also being the interim director of the Teaching and Learning Center. So I have to do engagement. I can't even make it without some sort of engagement. So please just type in the chat, what do you teach? What is your area? And are you new to OERs? And I'm sure it'll just fly by, but I want to know, what area do you teach in? And are you new to OERs? Okay, not new. Art history, 3 years. Okay, great. Not new. Okay, Spanish. Somebody new in math. We have a great math department that's doing it. Chemistry, experience doing it. Not new. New librarian, not new. Okay, so a lot of people have been doing it, using OERs for about 5 years in English Comp, not new. Have you been creating them? When you mean not new, have you been creating them or you've been using them? Totally different. But bringing LibreFest info to the campus, creating and using. Awesome. So this is going to be interesting in that it's going to be hands-on as we do this remotely, as we all figured that out when COVID hit and we all had to figure out how to do things, how to teach remotely and what this looks like and how it, so that's what we'll be trying here today. So I will be sharing my screen, but I hope that you will be doing it on your screen as well. So I don't know if you have to open up 2 windows, if you have 2 screens, if you just want to watch mine and then try to go back, but I'm going to share my screen as we talk about how to do this remixing. So you had homework that you were supposed to create a remixing map. Did you do it? Let's see. Can you give me a thumbs up if you did it? Can you, all the visuals and our reaction emojis? There we go. Becky knows how to do it. Okay, we got a couple thumbs up, Wait, oh, I see a sad face, Sheila. Okay, just like the students, it's okay. I'm not seeing, okay, a couple more thumbs up. Okay, a reaction like, I'm not sure. Anybody else? No sad faces. So, but just like the students, like, come on now. I see a black screen. Are you with me? So, well, let's look. I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully you are able to, there's another sad face. Okay, that's all right. Hopefully you are able to get into LibreTexts, and I'm going to go to my LibreTexts and start sharing my screen. Okay, so LibreTexts has this amazing thing that's called a remixer, and you can pull content from any of the libraries and put them together into your own course. So whether you want to try to do this with me or if you want to just watch me do it, I'm fine either way. Feel free to raise a hand if you have a question and I'm going too fast, or type something in the chat. It should come up. Feel free to open your mic. To hear another voice is always wonderful. I'm like, wow, I'm not speaking to myself.
I'm going to take your invitation and open my mic.
There you go. I love it. Yeah. I can hear you.
Just because it seems to me that we might need to know a little bit about what a sandbox is before we dig into this.
Great.
Can you say something about that?
Sure.
And how to get one?
Sure. And I saw Delmar as well. So feel free to jump in, Delmar, and answer it as well. But the sandbox says it's where you get to play. It's your little area where you can create your own OER and where you can remix and where you can practice and where you can try things. As far as requesting one, Delmar, do you want to speak to that quickly?
It's generated automatically if you have an editing account and you try to go access it. So it creates automatically for you. So you don't request it at all.
Okay, it creates automatically when you get an account. So if you have an account, you should have a sandbox. So let me go back and show you how to get to your sandbox. So if you are in LibreTexts, you should have this black bar at the top that lets you know you're in. And then by your name, if you click on your name, a drop-down menu will appear, and there is your sandbox. So click on your sandbox. Mine was already up, and there you see my sandbox. Okay. So if you go to the left menu, you see developers, tools, libraries, resources. I want you to click on tools. Another menu is going to come up, and go to the third one down, the OER Remixer. Click on that. It's going to take a minute for something else to come up, but now we are in the Remixer. Are we all good? I love it. I see nodding. Okay. One of the first things you need to do when you get to your Remixer is give your new book a name. So whether you want to try to work on the Remixer, that's the map that you've already created, you can do that. If you were like, I've already got it, I'm doing science, whatever. I am education. My course is TED 2830, and that's what I'm going to call it. Assessment of Students is my course. So go ahead and name it. You scroll down.
Go ahead, and before you get too far.
Sure.
We've still got a couple of people trying to like get to the Remixer. So before you start like showing us,
thank
just
you.
give us a few minutes here.
Okay, sure. One more time to the Remixer. Okay, I'll go back. So I'm gonna go. So when you're on the home page, when you're on your sandbox page, there is a table on the left that has all these different tabs, and you hit tools. Another window appears, and then that's where you hit your Remixer. Tools, and then OER Remixer. Thank you, whoever stopped me. My chat wasn't popping up. Are we good? Okay. So now you're in your Remixer. Somebody tell me, what is the first thing I said we need to do once we get to our Remixer? Oh my gosh, 55 students. Who was listening? Okay, wait. Somebody typed something in the chat. Okay, there we go. Name it. There we go. Yay, there we go. Good students. Yay. Okay, so take a minute and name it. All right. There we go. Good stuff. Okay, scroll down. And you're gonna see it says library panel on the left. Can I highlight it? Ooh, I can highlight, see? Library panel. Here is where you can access all the libraries. I happen to be in the business one because that's where my account is, but I can grab a book from anywhere. So I click on the down arrow and all the libraries come up. This is how you can choose a book from anywhere to put in your Remixer. Okay, so pick a library. I want to go to social sciences because I know that's where education is. So I'm going to click there. Okay, I am now in the social sciences library, and I want to look on the bookshelves. I want to see what is all the different books that are in this library. I love it. This little plus always means that there's more hidden underneath there. So just click on the plus whenever you see it. It means there's more stuff. So I'm clicking on it, and all of a sudden, a whole nother list of all these other books comes up. It's actually just categories. It's not even books. Okay. And so then I click on, I want education and professional development. I want to see what else is under there. And you see it again. I get a whole nother list. Okay. The plus sign tells me what? What does the plus sign tell me?
More books.
More books. I love it. There's more, there's more, there's more. So click on it.
Inside the book.
Say it again?
It shows what's inside the book.
Yes. When you get to a book level, it will say, okay, well, now here's chapters. Here's what's inside the whole book. Yes, there's more, there's more, there's more. And this, if you want to go deeper and see everything, you can go down even further to see the lessons that are in there. So remember, you put together hopefully a remixing map, and so you know what you want already. So we're just playing around. So I'm going to say, well, I want to do this unit 5 that is memory. You click, drag, and drop. Okay. The panel on the right is my empty book, my empty shell. And this is where I'm going to start dragging information. There's a jingle from Reading Rainbow or something. Open a book, see what's inside. There's a jingle. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read the chat. I don't know if somebody was asking me to do something. Okay, let me take unit 5. I'm going to drag it over and put it in chapter 1. Okay. So now it is part of my book. And then I decide I want unit 1, and I'm going to drag that over as well. And now it is in my book. Okay. Any questions?
We'll let you know, Deborah, if there's things in the chat that you need to be aware of. We'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're just practicing here. So I've dragged over a couple of things and I want to save it. But before I save it, I want to dump some of these empty chapters. Got it? Okay, good. So I'm going to click on this untitled empty chapter. I'm going to go up to the trash can and I'm going to delete it. Just want to make it a little cleaner for when I save it. So this is just a test. And then I'm going to go save to server. And then it's going to give me a note. It's going to say you've got some blank pages. You've got 16 pages that will be copied, transcluded. You've got no recommended structure. And then it's going to say save again. And then it's going to tell me how long it's taking to save it to the server. And it's creating my book and it's putting it together. Done. My book has been created. Now I need to just go back to my sandbox to see it. How frequently should you save to the server? Well, if you're creating every time you're working on it, you're changing it, you're adding something to it, you should be saving it. Okay, and here is my book. So everyone who tried it, were you able to go back? Were you able to save it? Did you find your book? Has it popped up in your sandbox?
Deborah, my understanding about that question, Dell is probably a better resource, but my understanding is that you don't want to save to the server until you're ready for the book to be created in your sandbox.
You can't save too much. My recommendation is if you're doing lots of extensive stuff all over the place, it's best to do it in some saved chunks. But you can't save it too often.
No. Thank you.
Right? Thank you. So was everyone able to create your book? Yep, I see nodding. Great. It's pretty simple. It's a really simple system, I think. Okay, so you've created it and now you're like, well, I actually want to add something to it. How do I get back to it? And how do I get back to it in the remixer? Okay, well, first we've got to go back to the remixer. So how do I get to the remixer? There we go. Yep, back to my tools. Tools, there we go. You got it. Go to my tools, go to remixer. And sometimes people get like frantic. They're like, my book isn't here. I can't find it. I can't find it. And I'm like, there's just one little tab. You are in the new remixer mode. So it's looking for something. It's looking for you to create something new, but actually you want to edit the one that you already created. So you just got to switch this little bar and it's going to say you want to swap and look at edit. You're going to say, yep, I want to look at the one that I have already in there. Go to edit, go to your sandbox again, because remember that's where you saved it. And there's my book. And if I want to work on it, I'm going to click on it. Can't see here. And I'm going to go up to the right and say remix selection. And then it's going to pull that book into the remixer again. So if I say, oh, I want to add more stuff, it's there. It's right there for you. So that's how to get back to it once you've already started working on it.
Okay.
Okay. So then let's go back to the actual book again. Here's my book. I'm sure you guys are going to do something with editing a little bit later, so I won't get into that, but you can go back and you can look at the book, you can edit the book. Once you've put it all together in the remixer, now you have the opportunity to go in and to read it, to look at it, to edit it, to add videos, to change it around a little bit. But if the more of it that you can do in the remixer, the easier it makes it when you're looking at the book, because it's all together. If you can pull chapters and put them together in the remixer, then when you get to the editing, it's just little things that you'd have to tweak and you would have to do. So that's the remixer. Easy peasy. Questions, comments about the remixer?
Does it work the same way if you start a new book rather than remix?
Say it again for me, please.
Does it work the same way or also work for a new book instead of the remixed?
What do you mean by a new book?
I mean, you are not remixing from some other book, you are creating a book.
You're creating a book. Okay. So if you wanted to create a book, you could still use the remixer. It would help you to put together a nice shell. And then you could even give the chapters titles, I believe, in the remixer. Ooh, and Josh is gonna answer for me. So Josh, please go ahead and jump in. Josh?
Yeah, a couple of things. In the question of saving, there's an intermediate step. You can save the remixing map. You show the remixer. Just go to the remixer.
Oh, okay.
Go down. Down further. Stop. See where it says save map? You essentially save a file which contains everything you've put into the remix panel. You can then at a later time, if something messes up or it goes crazy or you go to lunch, you can load that map, and that will put the remixing panel that you just saved back into the remix panel. So that's kind of an intermediate step if you want to protect yourself a little bit. Also, there was a question of where do you edit what you just saved? Well, after you've saved it, there's something at the bottom of the panel that says go to your textbook, and you edit. If you save to server, doesn't matter, just go save to server. We'll jump up here. And then you can, if you want to change your remixing map, you can go to revise. That takes you back. Or if you remix it, then they'll be in the, if you go save to server, don't worry, it'll tell you, you can edit it here. Give you a little green thing at the bottom. In the blue, yeah. Where it says your new text will be available here. You just go there and you click where it says your new text will be available here. And that's where you edit it. And I think that's the next talk.
Great, thanks. And the other question, Josh, was about creating a new book instead of remixing. Would it be best for them to do that in the remixer and just sort of title it there?
No, it turns out that the best way of doing it is to go to the remixer and basically enter your table of contents into the remixer. And then you can remix it. You've got a bunch of empty pages and you can edit each page. I just did that last night for somebody.
Yes, that's a great way to do it. Because then you've got, you know, all these chapters that you can just, you know, put, you know, introduction.
Yeah, double click
whatever.
on that so you show them. Yeah, you can change the name. And of course, a couple of quick things here. If you go on top where it says new untitled remix and just select that.
I'm sorry, where?
Just select, no, new untitled remix in the remixing panel. So
Here.
actually, yeah, go there.
Mhm.
Just, and then hit plus a couple of times. No. Cancel it. Hit plus a couple of times in the blue bar.
Oh, here, plus, okay.
And if you that creates new chapters down at the bottom, you can move them around. And if you say you select methods, chapter 2, select chapter 2. And now if you hit plus, so you've got your new pages, and you can build out your book that way. If you give me a list of URLs where you want things from, you can build a book in about 20 minutes.
Good stuff. You just got some tips and tricks from the master, Josh.
Yeah.
Able to help you, to show you how to quickly build chapters, quickly build pages. And yeah, this is a great way to put your shell together. And then if you want to, you know, input your content into it and create, that's awesome.
May I ask
Great.
a question of
Of
Josh?
course.
So then, Josh, by building your own table of contents and adding the pages within the chapters, would you then just be able to bring in any content in your library panel and just drag that over and do it that way instead of the other way around? Instead of starting with an already created OER, just start with your table of contents and then add. Is that right?
You can do that. It's kind of a hybrid. You can leave empty pages where you're going to put your content. It's very flexible, and everybody finds their own bag of tricks, but you know, it's like Halloween. You get together with your friends afterwards, and she likes this candy and you like that candy, and you trade back and forth.
Chocolate.
Okay, yeah, I'll go for that.
There is a tag that says load map. Is it where we input the Excel file of the template that you sent to us about the table of contents?
Josh, that was a question regarding where you said here, save the map and
Load
then
map.
load the map.
Yes.
Josh, what would this, if I hit save map, what is it going to do? Save this table of contents that I created?
Yeah, I may suggest just ignoring the save map and load map. That's the equivalent of save file and load file. That would be a better term for it. So it's if you don't want to save to the internet for some to the server for some reason or another. For example, people can create and remix without an account using the remixer, but you save to a file because you don't have permission to generate a book. That was one of the earlier versions of the thing. It's not used that much. Josh recommended it there, but it's really not used that much. And I would probably encourage you to not pay careful attention to that and focus on primarily saving to the server. Solves all the issues that you're dealing with.
Great, thank you. I learned something new. Let me see if I can, oh, you got to save it to the server. But once you save to the server, then you can find it again. Remember, by going to the bottom in that blue bar and not having to go back up to your sandbox. But realize once you save, it is there for you to go back and to edit, which Josh said is the next thing that you guys will be working on. So I think the next section or chunk of time is that you actually get to work on your book. You have your course map and you get to use the remixer and start putting your book together. So any questions about how to do that before your next step is to go off and do it? Yes, Bucky.
So I'm sorry, but I kind of lost how to get to edit remix, because when I go there, it says re-remix, enter re-remix mode. If I say yes, my sandbox shows up, or the book in my sandbox shows up on the left-hand side instead of the right-hand side. So I'm a little confused.
Yes, and it will show up on the left-hand side instead of the right-hand side, because you may have several books in there. And so it's really trying to ask you, which one do you want to work on? So if you look at mine, I actually have several in there. So it's going to say, well, get specific, lady. Okay, so I'm going to swap to my remix.
Thank you.
And then I'm going to go down to my sandbox. And I'm going to open my sandbox again and see I have several books in there because I test a lot. I've got math, I've got assessment, I've got test, I've got test 2. So it's going to say which one. I've got to highlight it. And then this remix over here on the far right is highlighted. And now I can pick it. Okay.
Okay.
Or I could go to my basic math. But if I don't have anything highlighted, it doesn't know what to pick. And so it's like, which one do you want? So let me highlight it and now hit remix. And now it moves over to the right.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I appreciate the questions, because I always say there's somebody else wondering the same thing. And so you asked for them. So that's great.
So there are a couple of questions in the chat in the past little bit, as you've been talking about the best way to collaborate in terms of, do you use the same sandbox? Do you save a map? And then that colleague can upload that map to edit what you're working with. Can somebody speak to best practices for collaboration maybe?
know if Delmar or Josh want to speak to that, but one thing that we do at the college, which is awesome, is that our faculty have a shared sandbox so that they can see it and work on the text together, which is great. They do a great job with that. Delmar, I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
Actually, to be honest, I forgot the question.
The best way to collaborate.
There are multiple ways in order to do it, depending upon how you want to do it. Yes, you can create a team sandbox. So every individual gets an individual sandbox, which is protected. So only you and the development team has access to. But if you want to work on the same document, the same book, then you need team sandbox where everyone has access to. And that we can create upon request. Alternatively, since the whole discussion of saving maps come up, which I typically encourage people to avoid, as I mentioned before, you can have one person create the book and then share the file to someone else, and they can build upon it back and forth, like the old days before the cloud, when we would share documents back and forth type of thing. But I don't encourage that greatly, but it's a quick and dirty way in order to be able to share the files that goes back and forth that's there. So, and then there's always the old-fashioned way of sharing the username and password with your colleague, and they can come in and log in as yourselves. There's lots of different ways in order to do that. Once the book gets published and it gets moved out of your sandbox into your campus bookshelves, or if it's completely original content, we want to put it into central bookshelves for people to identify separate from remixes. You still have editing rights, and everyone else who created that book would have editing rights unless you want to cull that list right there. So just because things are not in the sandbox does not mean you don't have editing rights to the book that you've created. The end.
There's so many questions in the chat. I hope they're flying by. So hopefully when you guys get into breakout groups, you'll answer some of these. I think the issue for me is I'm on, demonstration mode. Yeah, that makes a difference. Yeah, thank you, Frank. Yes. So hopefully you have enough tools to get started, to work on your OER, to start building it. Yeah, and it's really, it's a process. Once you understand it, I think it's pretty easy to get back and forth and to move through the system. And you've got great resources here as you break into groups to work on your maps. So collaborate, talk to each other, ask questions. But anything else, Rachel?
Let's see. There's some questions about Amber or somebody else on the team want to try summarizing Bucky's. There's questions about pulling when you go to remix into your new thing. You do have to be careful about where you put it, right? Like,
What
the
does thing mean when you say into new thing?
Sorry, my brain is fried right now for whatever reason. When you're pulling a page from an old source, from something on the bookshelf, and you're putting it into your new,
when you're remixing.
yes.
Okay.
You've got that hierarchy built into where you drag and drop. And so you should be careful about where you drop it into your new thing, right?
Yeah, it's just like on your computer, right? You're moving files around. It matters where you've actually moved the files. So your structure can be completely haywire from what you're comfortable with. And everyone has their own preference on how you structure your computer's file system. The same thing here. You have full freedom of structure. I don't want to say full freedom. There are several paradigms on how to build books and limitations behind them, but you have lots of freedom around that. So it's important to, when you drag it, to drag it in the spot that you want it to go. But if it goes to a different spot by accident, you can then move it to a different spot. I mean, it's just like, again, a file system. It's pretty straightforward in that way.
Yes, exactly. Thanks, Del.
Hey, Delmar? Yeah, I think maybe it's be good to say something about the numbering system for pages and chapters.
Oh, yeah. So the remixer actually has basically three primary components. So one is being able to drag and drop and build your own book. The other one that's important is auto numbering. So if Deborah can pull up her screen again, since I think she had the remixer up, the auto number is turned on automatically. And if you move up a little bit, you can see it. So yeah, that big blue button that says auto number. And the tag that's right above it. So what it does is that when you drag something from the library into your book, so from the left to the right, it will automatically number it in an auto number fashion. So that means that if you grab chapter 5 of one book and chapter 29 of a different book, and you put them all into your book, 1 and 2, it'll just automatically numbering it together like this. So if Deborah were to delete like section 1.2, can you do that, Deborah? And delete it. And you'll see it renumbered everything, and it indicates what's going on by the red will be, when you save it, it will delete that page. The orange will be renamed because it numbers, the number changed from 1.3 to 1.2. And then the new page that was written, that she added below it that wasn't saved yet, so it doesn't exist, would then be renumbered to 1.3. But because it doesn't exist, you're not really changing. You don't need to know that it's changing the number because it didn't exist beforehand. So that's the color coding sequence off of it. And the auto number makes life really, really easy for people building books, because you no longer have to care about the structure of the book that you bring it over. As long as you organize it properly with comments, with colons between the number and the text. Sometimes, like in that case, at lesson 1.1 dash, then that's not organized right, and that needs to be, the title needs to be edited. I will also mention that if the text is done properly on the page, and this takes time in order to be able to do so, not everything is set up like that, you change the title number by the auto number, it will also change the equation numbers, the figure numbers, and the table numbers, if you have this code that's put into it. So in other words, making it so that you may not have to ever edit that page, irrespective of how you want to use it constructively, if we do everything right. But it takes time in order to make sure everything's done right. And sometimes we don't have everything that you may have to go in and edit it. But it's the only system out there that provides us this massive tool in order to be able to throw together a book really quickly and make it look like a book and organized and numbers right. And that the effort that you need to spend to go in and change numbering either at the title or at the text level becomes reduced or missing. And that was a slow process for us to figure this thing out, that when we were building the system, about what we needed to do. I won't even tell you about what we did in the past because it was nightmarish.
Sheila, do you have a question?
So to undo those, this looks like a warning, like, do you really want to delete lesson 1.2, and do you really want the new one to be optional assignments? So if you do, then you click save to server. If you don't, what do you do? If you say, oh no, I didn't mean that, how do you undo it? Or, you know, what then?
Deborah, are you going to press the undo button right there? There you go.
And then you undo each. Okay. Okay, good. Thanks.
Sorry, I saw somebody else. Who was that? Hang on, with the hand. Who was that? Lee? Is that it?
Yes,
Or-
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got a question for both you and Deborah. You said something about setting it correctly so that the auto number would work just like magic for figures as well as for page number. Does that mean that I have to keep the title the same? Or what is it? What do you mean by setting it correctly?
So that we'll get into when we actually look at the pages. So in other words, there's a little mini code that you paste. So when you say figure 1 or 1.1, what we do is I say figure, and then there's this little code that says page index 1, and then it grabs the title number and pops it in there. So when you change the title number, it automatically changes. So we follow a policy where we change the numbering of images tables and equations, so they always start in the beginning 1 on that page. That makes things a little bit more complicated in that you're not streaming like, like the old-fashioned days where you would say figure 2.5, and that that's chapter 2, but then you had to flip through pages in order to find which one is figure 5. This case here, if you say it's equation 2.5.1, I know it's more complicated because it's a triple number system, but what you're saying is the first equation on chapter 2, page 5. So you go directly to the problem, and that's automatically put in there. But you'll see this in action when we actually start looking at text. It's fairly straightforward, but it gets cumbersome. It takes time in order to implement this on every page in order to be able to process it. But once we do, then you have super great flexibility in order to be able to remix and not screw around with small editing of things, which is just really time consuming. I think someone mentioned also in the chat. We wanted to avoid that. My family is burning down the house with smoke everywhere. So if I go up in flames, you know why.
There's no fire.
Sorry.
So when you say keep it correct, mean that under 1.1, 1.2, that's the number that we keep it correct.
Yeah.
But the text next to it, that's something that we can change.
That could be anything. It's fine. And so we go through a lot of effort in order to make things, make the tables, the titles fully aligned with this. So basically 99.9% of the titles are like that. But sometimes people can manually update it if they don't use the remixer, and that causes some things that go awry. In fact, we're thinking about making it so people can't do manual manipulation of pages, so that you never have some of these issues that popped up. And hopefully you'll never experience it, so it's not really that big of a deal in order to comment on.
So would that also taken care of if we end up, say, like merging two sections together in a remix? Like say if I want to mix,
you want to take 2 pages and merge them together into one.
Yeah, say
page?
like 1.2 and 1.3. Say like want to mix them together.
Yeah, you have to do that at the page level. Just like on your computer, when you have 2 files, you can't kind of like merge them together. You need to pull up a software to bring them together. The same thing happens here. The remixer is designed to work only by manipulating pages and pages only.
So in that case, I would take the keep the 1.2 and then just take the content of 1.3 and throw it in the 1.2 and then delete the 1.3.
Or vice versa, whichever one you want to do.
Yeah.
So just think of it this is like a file system, how you'd organize a file system. And then when you want to edit the content on the page, you need to edit. We could build something that allowed remixing at the block level on a page, but I think that's getting way too complicated and messy in order to implement. So it's just best to do it at this level and then let the editing take the next level. And there are a lot more advanced aspects of the editing that obviously we'll go into, including attributions and things. Anyways, I'm stealing Deborah's mojo here, so I feel a little
thank you.
Please, no, not at all. But Mohammed does have a question.
Quick question on the same thing that we were talking about. Say there are 3 or 4 figures and we insert a figure somewhere in between, the numbering will automatically change. I mean, auto number.
No, you have to manually do that. We've talked about making an automatic accumulation and things. We are a little concerned about doing exactly what Lee mentioned. So if you grab content in 2 different pages, you need to have some. You don't just need to change the numbering. You need to change the references to the numbering. And that makes it complicated. So in this case here, our recommendation is to make it so that you manually change it, which can get a little cumbersome, I understand, in the dynamic changing. But that's how our system is set up right now, until I find a system up that I feel would work robustly without having expert programming skills in order to maintain.
Yes, Sheila.
So let me ask Delmar, then if you manually change by copying and pasting information on 1.3 so that you can bring it into 1.2, then you run into that issue possibly where you said that you might not be actually saving an image, you're just linking it to an outside.
Oh, no. If you copy from within our library, it's fine. Because actually technically everything is hot linked within our library, our platform. So really all our files are stored on a separate database from the content that's stored on the page. And that's why it makes a reference to go to that database and bring it in. So technically everything is hot linked, but everything is internally hot linked. So
Amazing.
the only issue that you have is if you copy and paste from outside and you bring it in, you're not bringing, the only way that you bring images on our site is to do it formally, which could be drag and drop, which you'll learn soon, or press a button in order a pull down menu in order to attach off of it. So if you don't drag and drop it, or you don't manually attach it, you haven't uploaded the image. So this is a problem, for example, we've had with Wikipedia. So Wikipedia for the longest time allowed everyone to hot link from it. But hot linking is not desired for a variety of reasons. In fact, some people are really quite offended by the concept, because what you're doing is you're essentially not having to pay for hosting of the material. You're letting someone else pay for the hosting material, and you're just basically using it. So what Wikipedia did about 1 or 2 years ago is they let you hot link for 2 weeks. So people would copy and paste from Wikipedia onto a page when we get to editing, and they see it on the page and say, yay, it's done. And then 2 weeks later, it goes away. And it's like, okay, what do you do? Now, I will mention, since the topic of hot link came up, if you do that, it's perfectly fine as long as we run a bot before it expires that will automatically copy it over. So you don't even need to do the drag and drop.
Amazing. Then can that, then is that bot run something somebody can request if they're concerned?
Yeah, you can request it. Okay. It's fairly innocuous. In fact, it could be something that we can make people use. We were going to make it into a cron job, which means that it would be run every night, but it's probably best to just let developers run it, because it doesn't do anything bad. You can't screw up anything when you run that specific bot. But I wouldn't be able to put it up for several months. We have a high priority list right now of things to cut through.
Thanks. You know, the high image discipline of art history, this is a really important issue for everybody who's working with me on those things. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'm still aware of the request in order to press on the image and it pops up bigger. It's on our to-do list. It just hasn't, we're dealing with a few other things. We're dealing with a few dozen other things that are kind of taking our time. So again, sorry to step on your toes, Deborah here.
No, not at all. I'm loving it, and I love all the answers to the questions, and I'm sure the people do too. I'm actually over time, so I'm going to hand it back to Amber. And thank you for having me.